The office was silent, save for the hum of the HVAC and the hollow click of my keyboard. It was 8:14 p.m. on a Friday. My vision was beginning to blur into the blue light of the spreadsheet, my third 60-hour week in a row. I wasn't working for a promotion, I was working to maintain the buffer. Then, the ping that IT wasn't a frantic vibration. It was a light, breezy chime that felt like a needle prick. I picked up my phone. A text from Sarah. So, big news. I quit today. I'm finally following my bliss. Since you're the stable one, I told Mom and Dad you'd cover our shared expenses and my rent while I recenter. Love you, sis. I didn't blink. I didn't even feel my heart rate climb. Instead, I felt a cold, crystalline stillness. She hadn't asked. She hadn't checked my balance or my sanity. She had simply performed a financial lobotomy on my future and expected me to smile through the procedure. In her world, my stability wasn't a result of discipline, it was a natural resource for her to strip mine. The ping of audacity had arrived. And for the first time, I didn't reach for my wallet. I reached for the delete key. The phone didn't just ring, it demanded. My mother's caller ID flashed on the screen, a digital summons I'd obeyed for a decade. I picked up, and before I could breathe, her voice was there, syrupy, thick with the kind of manufactured warmth that always preceded a withdrawal. Honey, isn't it wonderful? She cooed. Sarah is finally prioritizing her soul. She's a creative, Olivia. She isn't built for the grind the way you are. The grind. That was their word for my discipline. My missed sleep and graying hairs were just personality traits, while Sarah's lack of a plan was an artistic temperament. We already told the landlord you'd wire the rent, she continued, her tone shifting into that dangerous, reasonable softness. You have that senior role now. What's a few thousand to you? Family is a circle, Olivia. We support each other. I looked at my bank statement. The circle only flowed one way. I wasn't a sister in this conversation, I was a line of credit. The facade was perfect, they weren't asking for a handout, they were inviting me to participate in the family's love. But I finally saw the price tag. Later that night, Mark sat across from me, watching as I stared at my open laptop. He's a structural engineer. He understands how much weight a beam can take before the microscopic cracks become a collapse. You're doing it again, he said softly. You're looking at Sarah's credit card statements like they're your own dental records. She's recentering, Mark, I said, the words tasting like ash. No, he countered, closing the laptop lid. She's utilizing. There's a difference between a safety net and a floor mat. You aren't being a good sister. You're being an unpaid insurance policy for a woman who views your stress as a renewable resource. That he was right. I scrolled back through 2 years of Venmo transactions. $400 for a wellness retreat, $1,200 for emergency car repairs that were actually custom rims. My savings hadn't flatlined because of bad luck, they had been siphoned away to fuel an identity crisis that never ended. I realized then that they didn't love my strength. They loved my accessibility. My stability wasn't a personality trait, it was their exit strategy. And I was finally done being the one who paid for the privilege of being used. The anger didn't burn, it crystallized. I didn't send a heated text or a tearful rebuttal. Instead, I opened a different tab, my bank's legal department. 3 years ago, I had signed as a guarantor for Sarah's luxury studio loft to help her get on her feet. I had been the silent scaffolding holding up her aesthetic life. I called the leasing office. My voice was level, professional, the voice of an architect looking at a condemned building. I'm invoking the exit clause, I told the manager. I am withdrawing my guarantee. Per the contract, if the primary tenant cannot prove independent income within 30 days, the lease terminates. Next, I moved to our joint emergency account, the one Mom insisted on for family contingencies. I saw the pending charge for Sarah's celebratory. I quit dinner at a 5-star steakhouse. I clicked cancel. Then, I transferred every cent of my contributions into a private, high-yield account they couldn't touch. That I wasn't attacking them. I was simply removing the floor they had mistaken for a sky. The scaffolding was coming down, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to be the one standing underneath to catch the debris. The explosion didn't happen in person, it happened in the palm of my hand. That my phone didn't just vibrate, it convulsed. A video call from the family circle. I hit accept and was met with a wall of sound. Sarah was center frame at a spa, her face blotchy behind a designer mud mask. My mother was beside her, a portrait of rehearsed outrage. Olivia. My card was declined. Sarah shrieked, her voice echoing off the marble tiles. In front of everyone. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that is? You've paralyzed your sister, my mother added, her voice trembling with that sharp, manipulative edge. She's in the middle of a transition, and you're playing games with her survival? This is cruel, Olivia. This is beneath you. I looked at them, two people who viewed my labor as their birthright. It's not a game, I said, my voice as steady as a structural beam. It's a budget. My name is off the lease, and the emergency fund is closed. Since Sarah has recentered, she can find a center that pays rent. The screaming started then, the ungrateful and selfish labels, but for the first time, the words didn't stick. They just sounded like wind hitting a window. 6 months later, the silence is no longer heavy, it's a luxury. I'm sitting on a balcony overlooking the city, the air crisp and free of the humidity of obligation. The family circle chat has been archived for months. Sarah eventually found her center. It turned out to be a desk job at a local insurance firm. My parents had to downsize, moving into a modest condo that didn't require a human anchor to keep it from sinking. They were angry for a while, casting me as the villain in their drama of abandonment. But eventually, the noise stopped. When you stop providing the stage, the performance has to end. That I looked at my reflection in the glass. I didn't look like a fixer anymore. I looked like a woman who owned her own hours. I realized that cutting them off wasn't an act of malice. It was a reclamation of my own life. That if you are the one always expected to handle it, remember this, you are not a backup plan. You are not a safety net for people who refuse to walk. Real love doesn't ask you to drown so they can float. Real belonging is the moment you finally stop being an anchor and start being the sail.